Well, as I mentioned, our readings this morning do not come from the lectionary for the second Sunday of Lent. They were chosen for Standing Rock Sunday as both of them pertain to water. Water is mentioned in the Bible more than 700 times, more so than words like faith and hope and prayer. Our native brothers and sisters understood the sacredness of water thousands of years before the words of the Bible were written. We know that our planet is mostly made up of water, our bodies are mostly made up of water, and water is necessary for life. Water is life. The leaders of the United Church of Christ see what's happening at Standing Rock not only as a creation justice issue, but also as a social justice issue. And so they are there in Washington, D.C. this weekend, and I'm sure you saw some photos online or on the news this weekend of the teepees set up in the National Mall with the Washington Monument and the Capitol building in the background. We are so fortunate this morning to have one of the Native American water protectors who has been at Standing Rock come and speak with us today to share with us what's happening and what we can do moving forward to take action. So would you please give a nice warm Douglas UCC welcome to Lee Sprague.
Buju, Mitugwawak Indigenous, Ajijak and Dodom, Namanitagang Donjuba, Machibanashwich and Dow. My name is Lee Sprague, or Wood That Bends But Doesn't Break. I am from the Crane clan.
Lee, just
Can I
get the microphone on.
a little closer?
There you go. I think
Okay.
it wasn't on. Go ahead and talk. Test.
Okay,
Should I start over again?
thanks. Thank you.
Okay. I apologize.
Okay.
Buju, Mitugwawak Indigenous, Ajijak and Dodom, Namanitagang Donjuba, Machibanashwich and Dodom, and Dow. My name is Lee Sprague, or Wood That Bends But Doesn't Break. I am from the Crane clan. I am from the territories currently occupied by the state of Michigan. And my people are the Gun Lake tribe, just right here in these territories. I'm also from the other side of the river, with the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians. I'm the former chief there. For me, it's always been hard to love one side of the river. And our treaties will say we have on one side or the other side, but I love it all. Does anybody here have a treaty? We're going to have to talk about that. My people have 41 treaties. The Potawatomi peoples are a part of the Anishinaabe Nation. And our treaty making goals predates the United States. We were making treaties with the French, with the British, and so we have a long history of this. And in fact, when the United States made treaties with us, it was because we had international standing. They did not. And many people in Europe didn't want to recognize the United States because they also had colonies at risk. So I just want to change a little perception here about that. The French were here for 200 years, 1604 to 1804. The British were here, if you think Canada still exists, maybe 350 years. The United States here has been here about a little over 180 years. We're still here. The British are gone, the French are gone, and so we have a little different perspective perhaps. And the United States, as great and as big and powerful it seems, is still a thin slice and always will be a thin slice of our history. But I have 41 treaties, and that might be a record for North America of having treaties with powers that are not from this part of the continent. We had treaties with many other Native nations too. But you have treaties. You are part of those 41 treaties that we signed. If you're from any other place other than Michigan, wherever you lived at, there's a treaty there possibly with the Native people there. And those are your treaties. So you have to take a little ownership of that. Because where I'm from, we fight with our politicians daily just about over our treaties, making sure that our government maintains our treaty rights. And in the long run, and I hope this is the beginning of a longer conversation, you're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to have to ask your government or force them or something to at least honor those treaties. And it's at a point now where those treaties, and many of you have more treaties than I'll ever have. And as United States citizens, you have hundreds of treaties to be responsible for. And I'm hoping that you join me in taking the same responsibility of my small nation, right here in these territories, to make sure that those treaties are held up. That those are a sacred word, an honorable word. And it's not just because of my own self-interest at this point. I mean, right now, I believe it's coming down to your self-interest. That what's in those treaties will not only protect our people and my children and my grandchildren, but yours also. Because we all do drink the same water and share the same breath. So it's not such a self-interested thing. And there's a great fear about those treaties, where U.S. citizens believe, and residents, that if somehow those treaties were to be maintained or upheld, that there's a great loss involved for yourselves. And because they're unknown, that everybody's going to have to leave. Maybe you pay taxes to a different sovereign, I don't know. But there are solutions out there that we need to explore together. And in this whole process, I know that we have to give up a lot. That's hard to say. So going forward, I just really hope that you can read some of those treaties, and they're not difficult to understand. You know, all of our children know what they say. They know what the good word is. They know what we're supposed to do. And it takes a U.S. court and a federal judge and attorneys to make them say something they are not meant to say. You know, we call those dead words on paper. They're not living words anymore. And it's us that have to make it living, you know. I've been greatly educated just being here, reading the program this morning and last night, and hearing that the word water had been mentioned in the Bible 700 times. These are things I did not know coming here. And a lot of my distrust is from institutional churches, which were directly used as instruments to break apart our communities. And I have an institutional distrust of the U.S. government and all of its subsidiary organizations. But I've also seen the people in those churches, and I've seen the people in North Dakota, in the sheriff's office. I've seen their eyes, and there's good people there too. There's a lot of good people everywhere. But we have institutions that have different interests. And some of those institutions are, we live in them, I go to them. You know, Walmart's basically subsidized, or I should say, supplied our revolution, our protection of the water. You know, that's something I really don't normally go into is a Walmart store, or, even drink bottled water. But that's something I had to do for the last 4 months. Thank you very much for this water, by the way. So I think, it's been very difficult just being here, not being in North Dakota and other parts of that area. But if anything, I was really pleased to read the program, and I saw the good work that went into it. And so, I'm being educated. And so, as things progress forward, and I'm going to be going back soon. I said I was going to go back, and there's things I have to complete there still. And I use the word I a lot, but it's not me. There's a lot of people involved. Some of them are in jeopardy legally. And I can tell you that there's no criminals. There are incidences similar to this one I'm going to speak about where one of the things that we use is cornmeal to pray. And a police officer stopped one of our water protectors who was with us, and they said that his cornmeal tested positive. He's from New Mexico, by the way. but they said his cornmeal field tested positive for methamphetamines. And he was arrested. He had a $1,000 fine. She had a $500 fine. And, I have relatives who are being charged with domestic terrorism. A brother. He's not a terrorist. So there's, the media keeps on saying it's over. And then they celebrated that, the pipeline was over. They were stopped by an EIS. Every time we hear these things in the media, I'm looking up at the hills where I lived at, and I see more trucks, more pipeline workers, more militarized vehicles. We literally live within 400 yards of giant spotlights, airplanes, helicopters, drones, people with 308 sniper rifles. And for myself, I was able to put those aside. I know for some people, that's all they could see sometimes. And so there's a lot of clarity comes at that point. What's important, what to do. And those things were always in our mind, I can say that we did live the winter in North Dakota, which I guess was a record winter in some respects, with solar and wind power, and with a wood-heated teepee at one point. And we had to change shelter several times. And we did use propane for cooking. And we're thinking about those kind of things right now. So those seem very difficult things to do. And in retrospect, they might be difficult. But, we did them. And that just shows to me that we can make the change that is needed here in this part of the world. There are a lot of topics that are going to be difficult to address. And I'm going to try one of them today, because it needs to be talked about in an open way. And I want to talk about immigration. I don't think there's an absolute right to immigration, unless it's part of a colonial enterprise, because immigration it's inextricably intertwined with colonization. You can't execute a colonial policy without an immigration policy. And some of the things that I need to give up, or we need to give up, I'm okay with immigrants coming here, but we need to lower the overall gross domestic product, the GDP. Right now, the immigration policy is favored towards people who are high income earners, which means high-end users, which means you're part of the 5% or 4% of the population on the earth that uses 25% of the resources. And that's what people call the American dream. There's this want to come to here, to America, and to explore all the wealth and the riches that one can acquire that you may not be able to do in your home country. Those are not the real wealth of peoples and nations on the earth. There is a great wealth there that we can share, but it's going to really require some deep thoughts about immigration. Bring in the farmers, bring in the organic farmers, the artists, the dancers, the singers, the truth sayers, bring in the pundits, bring them all in. But year after year, we have to, all of us, myself included, have to lower our overall consumption rate. There's just no two ways about it. And it's at a point now where I know that we have to work exponentially to get there. I do a lot of talking and one-on-one sometimes, but, it's horrible to see the Earth's creation being destroyed in front of our eyes. You don't have to go very far from here, or even in the vehicles that I drive and that we drive, to know what part of the Earth it took to make that, how every piece of plastic and metal came out of the ground and was mined and milled and processed, and water was used to deliver it and refine it. And those things, I don't even know if I can see the way out of that right now. I just know we need to do it. And so I think that's probably one of the more difficult things that we need to have a conversation about. And I'm hoping that this is the beginning of that conversation. A lot of deep thought about immigration. We just can't continue to have the current policies where people are coming here and it's favored towards high-end consumers and users. People who are, can be exploited for labor, they have a hard time getting across the border. And, I'm going to say this, and I hope I'm not offending anybody, but it's not the freshwater wetbacks, as I've heard them called. It's the saltwater wetbacks. if that makes any sense. People have come across the oceans. I know that's offensive to hear those words, but I hear, wetbacks all the time. So those are difficult topics that we have to address. And then the topic of, because our grandchildren are going to be playing together. Our great-grandchildren are going to be breathing the same air and water. And so I think we can agree far out, that what we want for our future. Even the capitalists, the industrialists, the mining company want a good future for their great-grandchildren. What we're arguing about is what are we going to do today? What are those simple steps that we can do? And you guys have taken a big step. Like I said, I was greatly educated by just looking at the program today. I live in my own little bubble. And it has its own false walls and its own pretenses to it, and my own assumptions that come with it. And so, just know that there are good people like all of us here, still in Standing Rock. Some of them are struggling still. Some of us are going back and forth. I've recently started my first time away, my first time back. Yesterday and today might have been the first time I was able to even, basically even stand upright and think and talk. I don't even know how I made it the last week or two out there. So I'm going to be around for a long time. And I'm just right down the road here, In my day job, as I call it, I work with the Nottawasepi here on Band of Potawatomi near Battle Creek. And in my day job, I actually help restore wild rice, one of our sacred foods that grows on the water, in the Kalamazoo-Enbridge oil spill zone. I also work on all the watersheds on this side of the Grand River. Actually, I work on all the watersheds in Michigan. But my primary work has been to restore wild rice into the Kalamazoo River, along with other plants and medicines that are from the area. And I have a lot of help in this. I can't even paddle a canoe by myself. So I need other people to help me with that even. So that's what I do, and which I will return to doing here in these watersheds that we all share right now. And it's important to look outside and know what those watersheds are. I'm just thinking about things, and I'm looking, at Flint. That deeply concerns me. Here we are with 20% of the world's fresh water, 50% of the America's fresh water right here. And in the middle of all that, Flint is having a problem with water. And what's disturbing to me is that there's been no major discussion about cleaning up the Flint River as a solution. And if that can't be a solution, that's deeply disturbing to me. And so in addition to all the things that we're doing to help people in Flint, and the tribes in Michigan have helped, I believe it's important that we have to look at how can we get that Flint River clean. It's an expensive process. Just a short stretch of the Kalamazoo River, 38 miles, over $1.2 billion to clean it up. And it's debatable whether it's clean or not. So with those words and understandings, I'm asking you to be part of a conversation that needs to happen and continue going forward. And I really want to thank you for helping me understand some things today, just by reading the program and being in your presence. So I want to thank you for all that. So Bamapi until we see each other again. Thank you very much.